The A minor 7 chord consists of only two fingers, your first and your second finger. We're going to be putting our first finger on the first fret of the B string and our second finger on the second fret of the D string. Now the only difference between the A minor 7 and the traditional A minor is your third finger. For the A minor, you have your third finger down on the second fret of the G string, but for the A minor 7, we just remove that finger. So that's the only difference between the A minor 7 and the A minor. Now remember that the first note of this chord is the A string, so the low E string is not part of this chord, so you want to make sure not to strum it. You can always take your thumb to come across the top and touch it to mute it so it doesn't resonate while you strum. A common problem people run into is muting the strings behind your fingers. So you may accidentally mute the high E string with your first finger while it's pressing down on the B string. The same problem occurs with your second finger laying across and touching the G string while it's pressing on the D string. So to prevent those problems, you just want to make sure to press with the tips of your finger and to arch your fingers and make sure they're coming straight down onto the strings and they're not coming in at an angle. For this A minor 7 variation, we're going to be using three fingers. It's very similar to the first variation of the A minor 7, where we use our first finger on the first fret of the B string and our second finger on the second fret of the D string. But all we're going to do for this variation is we're going to take our pinky and we're going to add it to the third fret of the high E string, and that's going to add a G note to this A minor 7 chord. Now this variation fits very nicely in the G chord family because we're adding that G note. So when you're transitioning from a G, let's say, to that A minor, that G is a constant that stays the same between those chords. So it's a nice variation to use within the G chord family. A common problem for this particular variation is that stretch. You know, you've got a nice stretch here going from your first finger all the way to your pinky, and the pinky is typically your weakest finger. So, you know, a common problem is having a muted E string because you're not pressing down good enough on that pinky. So you want to make sure that for your pinky, you're pressing with the very tip of your finger on the sweet spot of the fret, which is 3/4 of the way up. It's not in the exact center. You want to be 3/4 of the way up of that fret. And if you're still finding that it's getting muted, try to adjust the angle of your whole hand. And if you turn your whole hand in, it'll actually allow your actual hand to give more pressure to your pinky. Rather than trying to use the muscles in your pinky to press down, you're able to use some of your hand to help give more pressure to your pinky on that third fret of the high E string. This A minor 7 variation is going to be a bar chord on the 5th fret. So we're going to bar the 5th fret with our first finger. Remember to bar on the sweet spot of the fret, 3/4 of the way up, not in the exact center. It's going to be harder to do it there. Also, you don't want to bar with the very front of your finger, but kind of on the side. So you want to press down on the side of your finger. You'll be able to use the harder part of your finger for that bar rather than the soft part of your finger. And then we're going to take our third finger and put it down on the 7th fret of the A string. Now you want to make sure to get good counter pressure with your thumb right there underneath the bar of your first finger. So you're going to have to put a lot of pressure for bar chords. So you want to get a good counter pressure on that thumb. And if you're having trouble getting a clean sound from all the strings, just slowly shift that finger around. You know, give it slight adjustments and try it again in slightly different positions to where you can get a feel for what's the best position to get that clean sound from all your strings. This A minor 7 variation is going to be way up here on the 7th, 8th, and 9th fret of the guitar. We're going to have our first finger on the 7th fret of the D string, and our third finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the G string. And then our second finger is going to be barring the last two strings, the B string and the E string, on the 8th fret. Remember to press on the sweet spot of the fret, which is going to be 3/4 of the way up on the fret, not in the middle. And because you're barring, you're not going to be pressing with the tip of your finger, you need to be pressing with the pad. Now for your first finger, all you really need to be doing is pressing down on the 7th fret of the D string. But in order to just press that string, you kind of have to have, you got to arch your finger and come down perpendicular to the neck of the guitar. But that makes it difficult to do the bar with your second finger. So for me, I actually just lay my first finger across. It's pressing down here on the 7th fret of the D string, but I have it laying across all the other strings because All of those other strings, it doesn't matter so much if my first finger is laying across them, because they're being pressed down by my other fingers in front of that finger. So by laying my first finger down, I'm able to actually take my whole hand and pull it back. And that really helps to get that bar correct on your second finger. Keep in mind that the low E string is not part of this chord, so you don't want to strum that one. You're going to start your strumming on the A string. This A minor 7 variation, we're going to be doing a bar way up here on the 10th fret of the guitar, but we're only going to be barring 4 strings. So the E and the A string we're not barring. So we only have to bar from the D string down. And then we're going to use our third finger and we're going to put it on the 12th fret of the G string, and our fourth finger we're going to put on the 12th fret of the high E string. Remember to press on the sweet spot of the fret and to bar with the side of your finger as much as possible and not so much on the pad. For this chord, we're not going to be playing the low E string, so we just make sure not to strum that one when you strum this chord.